What happens when one of the UFC's toughest veterans walks into the octagon for the final fight of his career against a fighter who is nearly 13 years younger and desperate to prove his first UFC loss was just a mistake? That's the question hanging over Darren, the Damage, Elkins vs Yadier, the Cuban Problem, del Valle at UFC Fight Night 284. And on paper, this looks less like a normal matchup and more like a brutal final test for a man who has already given the sport nearly everything he has. Darren Elkins is 42 years old, carries a 29-12 professional record, and has spent more than 15 years fighting inside the UFC. This is expected to be his final octagon appearance, making the matchup with Del Valle much bigger than a simple featherweight bout. Elkins has built his reputation on toughness, pressure, and an almost unbelievable willingness to absorb punishment and keep moving forward. His nickname, The Damage, was never just marketing. UFC records show victories over fighters such as Daniel Pineda and TJ Brown, but also losses against elite names including Alexander Volkanovski and Charles Oliveira. But there's a reason this fight has created so much concern among fans. Elkins hasn't competed since April 2025, when Julian Erosa stopped him by first-round TKO. Before that loss, Elkins had won 2 straight fights, including a submission over TJ Brown and a unanimous decision against Daniel Pineda. So the question isn't whether Elkins is capable of fighting. He absolutely is. The question is whether his body can withstand another young, aggressive fighter coming at him with everything he has. And that brings us to Yadier del Valle. The Cuban prospect entered the UFC with a perfect professional record and quickly made people pay attention. He submitted Connor Matthews in the first round, then submitted Isaac Dulgarian in another first-round finish. But his momentum hit a wall in February 2026, when Jordan Leavitt handed him the first loss of his professional career by unanimous decision. Suddenly, Del Valle has something to prove too. Here's where the matchup becomes especially interesting. Del Valle is younger, fresher, and has shown a strong submission game. His UFC record entering this fight stood at 2-1, with both of his wins coming by first-round submission. Meanwhile, Elkins has historically been extremely difficult to discourage, and his experience advantage is enormous. This is the classic battle between a rising fighter trying to make a statement and a veteran trying to write the final chapter of his career on his own terms. But there's another layer that makes this prediction much harder than the betting odds suggest. Del Valle has only a small UFC sample size. His victories over Matthews and Dulgarian were impressive finishes, but his loss to Leavitt exposed questions about how he handles a fighter who can disrupt his preferred approach. Even MMA analysts have pointed out that we still haven't seen enough of Del Valle against different styles to know exactly how high his ceiling could be. That uncertainty matters when you're facing someone with Elkins' experience. Still, the numbers heavily point toward the younger man. Betting markets listed Del Valle as a massive favorite, with Elkins priced as a significant underdog. That makes sense when you consider the age gap, the long layoff, and Elkins' recent first-round stoppage loss. Statistical comparisons also show Del Valle landing strikes more accurately and absorbing fewer significant strikes per minute, while Elkins brings the stronger overall wrestling volume and a much deeper body of UFC experience. So what's the most likely outcome? The safest prediction is Yadier del Valle by stoppage, most likely early. MMA Fighting's analysts also picked Del Valle to finish Elkins in the opening 5 minutes, arguing that the veteran's durability may finally have reached its limit. And honestly, that prediction is difficult to ignore. Elkins has survived wars that would have ended other fighters' careers, but this isn't about whether he's brave enough. It's about whether his body can still respond the way it did years ago. Yet there's one scenario that could completely flip this fight. If Elkins survives the opening storm, forces Del Valle into extended exchanges, and turns the fight into the kind of ugly, exhausting battle he has lived through for years, experience suddenly becomes a much bigger factor. Del Valle has never faced someone quite like The Damage in this stage of his career. And if Elkins somehow finds one last vintage performance, the entire prediction could collapse in a matter of minutes. That's what makes this fight so compelling. It isn't simply an aging veteran versus a young prospect. It's the end of one UFC journey against the beginning of another. Elkins has already spent decades proving he belongs in the octagon. Del Valle is trying to prove he deserves to stay there and eventually climb towards something much bigger. The odds may favor the Cuban prospect, and the prediction may point toward an early finish, but Darren Elkins has spent his entire career making people regret counting him out. This time, though, there's something different. There's no next fight waiting around the corner. This is the last walk, the last camp, and potentially the final few minutes of a career built on refusing to quit. And maybe that's the real story. No matter what happens inside the octagon, Darren Elkins has already earned the one thing every fighter is chasing, a legacy that people will remember long after the gloves are put away. If you found this update helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Unix Media, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest news. Thanks for watching.